Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Adithya and Mr. Soumitra, for joining us. And, Adithya is the founder of Progen. And for Mr. Soumitra, he's into a strategy and management consulting leader who has turned into an angel investor, entrepreneur, and VC professional. He's also associated with Dawdle as an early investor. To start the discussion, we'll go to Adithya, to kind of take us in a very brief, like, what is he doing? And then we'll go to Mr. Soumitra for any, questions on that.
Sure. Thank you, Rishikesh, for having us, first of all. So I've co-founded Progen Foods. We're a startup developing protein isolates from indigenous plant sources. And what we found out that India is extremely protein deficient, and a lot of these underutilized crops are available in India that are high in protein and are not currently being used. They're either being thrown away or they're used as animal feed. So we wanted to focus on those crops and develop proteins for human consumption. So that's a bit about us in a nutshell. And thank you so much again once for having us here. Is that
Yeah, thanks, Aditya. I think you are doing onto a very novel initiative, the Progen Foods, your founders and your co-founders and your team. So maybe let me first start with one basic thing that you said. You are trying to bring what I would say a lot of trust in India plant protein, and at the same time building sustainable protein solutions, if I were to put it that way. Now, having said that, for the benefit of the audience and everyone knows about proteins. But I would like you to first explain what protein isolates means, and then give a sneak peek into your journey, what you're doing, how you're making a difference. But let's first start with protein isolates.
So protein isolate is any substance that contains more than 80% protein. This is the context, particularly in terms of plants. What we do is basically we take proteins out and we separate it from the carbohydrates, fats, fibers that the other plants will have. So protein isolate is a condensed form of protein where you have more than 80%. So whatever energy you're deriving from consuming that product is primarily from proteins. Since India is extremely protein deficient and the energy that you derive as from in terms of calories is extremely necessary, we have created a product using which you get your entire calorie consumption from proteins, and that addresses the entire protein deficiency problem in India.
So that's fantastic. And just give a view of what made you get into this. And I would like to hear a little bit of story, not just me, but the audience. Obviously, everyone love to hear what you're doing, how you're doing it, how you're doing it, and what's the change you're trying to bring.
Yes. So when we started off with this, in this journey, we found out that India was extremely protein deficient. To be extremely honest, around 90% of Indians are protein deficient. This includes even non-vegetarians. And that is what struck us. And India is a diabetes capital in the world. And that is primarily because our food is predominantly carbohydrates based and fat based. So we don't get too much proteins from it, both non-vegetarians and vegetarians. So that is what triggered us to actually ideate and understand if we could use indigenous sources in India and develop high quality proteins from it to cater to the human consumption and to cater for, solving this entirely huge problem where 4 out of 5 Indians actually face this problem in the country. So that is what triggered us. And through our research, we found out there were a lot of these crops like your millets, like your legumes, oil seeds, especially your oil remnants, the waste remnants from your oil seed production, like your sesame, mustard, and different other seeds were extremely rich in protein, but they were just sent for animal consumption. In a few cases, they were even thrown away as waste. And that is what, that was a eureka moment for us. Why don't we use this waste, valorize the waste, and develop competitive products which can be used for human consumption and, target this market where, 4 out of 5 people are already protein deficient, and we need to get on our shoes right now to make sure that we don't become the diabetes capital, but we don't continue to remain the diabetes capital of the world. So that is what triggered us, and that is a little bit about how we started this off.
Oh, fantastic. I think you were addressing the problem of the lack of trust in Indian protein, along with, the way you are doing it, like indigenously sourcing the raw material or the, ingredients and making it happen. That's fantastic. So I think you mentioned about the, use of technology that you're having. So if I were to look at it, so 3 things come to my mind. One is technology. The second thing is continual innovation. And on top of it, what I would say, the technology, the innovation, and the way the approach that you're taking to solve this problem. So can you give a little bit brief about these three elements, or anything else that you're doing to make this a very unique and meaningful thing, not just for you, but for the entire community or the society?
So that's a very good question that you asked me. So technology is not a very standardized technology. It's a derived technology from a standardized process. So we have actually modified and optimized the process using which we've obtained protein isolates of extremely high quality and functionality. These proteins actually feed as raw materials for manufacturing of beverages, sometimes in a dosa batter, sometimes in ice creams. So these have different end uses, and each end use depends on a particular functionality. There may be emulsification, there may be a solubility of the protein, and so on and so forth. What we have found out during our preliminary study in the research is that most of the plant proteins are inherently insoluble in water. So once you solubilize or try to solubilize a protein and allow it to sit for a while, it will all settle down to the bottom. So that is a huge problem with in the adoption of plant proteins because it is inherently insoluble. So what we have come up with, we have come up with a process using which we have doubled the solubility of what is there currently in the market. And we've also had extremely high emulsification, 1.5 times to any other standard currently in the market. Us, making our proteins extremely functional to be used in different applications. So that is what we have done. And the process is something that has been optimized and modified. And we've also applied for a patent for this process. And the patent is currently under evaluation as we have this conversation. And we're looking to hear back from them in a couple of months. So that is what we have done particularly. And to answer your question of continuous process development and continuous product development, it is extremely important because, as I said, proteins can be used in multitude of applications. It can go into dosa batters, it can go into ice cream, it can go into beverages, it can go into plant-based meat. Each one, requiring a different functionality. So since we are going to be predominantly B2B, we would also like to extend our support to our customers in the sense of creating value added products from the proteins. So that is extremely important because protein as a raw material can go into different applications, but proving those applications requires extreme amount of R&D, and that is where we also pride ourselves in continuously developing the product and also continuously developing the process as well, because there are variables which help you reduce the flavor and reduce the bitterness in certain cases and improve the color for easier adoption. So all of these are also process variables which can be tinkered during the process, and that is also something that we're continuously working on. So our approach is definitely going to be an R&D first approach. We have a solid foundation and a base on which we can start, and we would continuously be developing our process and our products to ensure that we achieve the highest possible functionality for the proteins, and the adoption of proteins into the final products or the final formulations becomes easier for all the end use consumers like you and me. So that is what we're trying to do.
Well, that's superb. I think you talked about the essential ingredients of technology and continual, what you say, constant innovation on that, as well as the process, which definitely, engenders confidence in the people, the enterprises that deal with the protein and the protein supplements and all that kind of things. If I had to look at, let's say, I as a customer wants to see Progen as a very unique brand. So how do you position the product? What's the uniqueness that you have that says that, yeah, this is the Progen product? It's not like, see, today I buy rice, today I buy, there's everything which is coming with some degree of, either a sort of you have protein over here, you have protein over there. This is a differentiated. You get bombarded with messages. So how do you get that branding for yourself in your product?
See, our branding is essentially going to be on the product performance. The performance of the product should speak for itself. By product performance, I mean the solubility, the functionality, and the other important characteristics of the proteins like your color, your taste, and all of these sensory attributes as well. So that is what should speak. Because if you have a very poor functionality, for example, if you have an extremely pure emulsification, you're not going to get your plant-based meat. You're going to get a meat of a poor texture, of a poor characteristic, and it's going to crumble if you're going to fry it in oil and things like that. So this, if we have a really good, your water absorption and your emulsification, you will get a plant-based meat of a really good characteristic. And that is something that should speak for itself. So that is how we're going to be positioning ourselves. The product is going to talk for itself, and we're just going to let the product.
That's fabulous. You're like walking the talk with your product itself, and that's how the attributes come out. Now, as you're building your enterprise, obviously, this is a product. Now you have a technology supporting it, you have innovation supporting it. It's a product which finally lands into the plates of your end consumer. But as you're building the enterprise, what happens is the moat becomes, once you have your technology and your process established, your product distribution and all these things become the moat and keys, the critical success factors for you. So if you have to look at it that way, obviously your success or success of someone, you or someone who's who has embarked into such ventures, hinges on multiple things such as your partnerships, the distribution channels, as well as the capital that's needed initially and over a period of time. So where is that? How are you overcoming these challenges, especially at an early stage where you are in? And what's going well, and which are the areas where you're feeling a challenge, which is impeding your traction or your growth?
So that's a very, very good question that you asked me. So when you talk about moat, you're extremely right. You first start with the technology moat, and then you build layers on the moat where you have, better supply chain in some cases. You have a better product distribution channel in some cases. We are going to pride ourselves in the latter, where we have a better product distribution and a better relationship with our customers. Because a lot of these customers are trying to, as you say, stand unique or stand apart from the other competitors, because that is where their moat is going to lie. So we are going to also encourage customization of certain products in many cases. So that is something that is currently absent in the market because most of it is imported. There is a big absence of relationship building with the customers, and there are a lot of other operational challenges because of imports as well, which is what we're going to be focusing on to help customers. We're going to be co-creating products with them in such a way that we build a moat in that layer as well. And when you talk about the challenges that we've been facing, it all stems down to our supply chain, in the sense that India has very fragmented supply chains when it comes to agricultural produces. We don't get easy access to the farm to fork model. It's extremely difficult for us to get all the way to the farm where it is produced, because most of it is aggregated at mandis or through middlemen, and then that comes back to us. So that is something that we are constantly trying to solve. The challenge that we are facing is to take the transparency all the way to the final farm at which it is cultivated. So that is a bit of a challenge for certain crops. For certain crops, it is not. So that is something that we are actively trying to solve, because transparency is something that a lot of customers do pride on, and a lot of people, like a lot of consumers, also pride on. So that is something that we're trying to solve at this point.
Okay, no, I think co-creation is a fantastic concept. It happens typically a lot, we have seen in the technology and other spaces. But in the product space, when you're co-creating with your B2B customers or otherwise, and as we try to plug the gaps in the supply chain issues, which is universal problem in this country, if you see, it's a fantastic start. And what about capital? Do you face any challenges, or you are good with where you are?
Capital is an issue because you are always in a situation where more the merrier, because it will help you scale quicker. And we for us to scale, we need capital intensive equipment. So ours is not a software product where you can easily scale. So we need the equipment, we need the facility, we need the space to kind of scale up. So capital is definitely an issue. But as of date, we are in a position where we are looking to raise funds as well to help us scale and to get to really grow quickly. So that is always a challenge. But yeah, I mean, as of now, where we are in a good position to take things live into the market.
So Aditya, anything which probably we haven't talked, you would like to talk about your product?
See, our vision entirely lies in globalizing Indian ingredients, because what we've seen is that we've seen constant neglect of high quality ingredients. And India grows a lot of these crops. They're world's largest producers of most of these crops that you might have seen in the world. And the world has not seen proteins. The world has only seen those ingredients, but they're not aware of how rich the proteins are, how rich the amino acid profile is. So that is something that Progen is really wanting to shake things up with. So we want to take these ingredients globally, and so most of these. So though we have started off with, say, a legume protein at this point in time, which is pea, we have our eyes set on all these underutilized ingredients which we want to take globally. So that is what we want to do. And that is where the entire vision of the organization comes. Through this process, we also want to be environmentally conscious, because we are going to save around save around 50 times the GHG when it compares to the red meat production. So we want to substitute alternative. We want to substitute plant proteins. For want to use plant protein and substitute them for white and red meat, because that saves a lot of GHG, saves a lot of water use as well. And that is something that we want to consciously do when we are manufacturing and when we are scaling up as well. That environmentally conscious manufacturing and scaling is something that we take pride in, and that is something that we also want to do. So yeah, and what we've seen in India is that we've seen a lot of proteins being imported, even way to a large extent is currently. A lot of these farmers in India are not uplifted because of this. Though there's a growing demand for protein-rich products, you don't find that translation into the economy of the farmers, basically. So that is also something that we want to contribute to. We want to contribute to the growing farmer economy in this country by consciously procuring from them and utilizing indigenous ingredients to start manufacturing our protein. That is what is our entire vision. Use Indian ingredients, uplift the farmer economy, and take these Indian ingredients globally. So that is what we have in mind when we are scaling up.
It's very well said, Aditya. I think if I put it very succinctly, you are building the trust in the Indian protein space, in plant protein space. You are relying on the indigenous, produce to, low down the cost and scale it up locally. Then you want to take the face of India globally while actually being socially responsible in terms of ESG and other parameters that you are that you.
Absolutely.
No, that's a fantastic stuff. And I'm sure the audience that's hearing, the people, the interested parties that are hearing will find a lot of value in what you're doing and what you're saying. So before we conclude, I would solicit any questions from your end for me, if you have.
Yes, I just wanted to know a little bit more about your investment experience and how you take pride in investing in early stage startups. And would you look in founders and in startups, basically? I think a lot of early stage founders like me would have similar questions because, do you actually founder first? Are you actually company first? Do you first believe in the founders or the idea? How do you actually decide whether you want to invest in a company?
Okay. So I think that's a great question, but difficult as well, because my role which started, in fact, I have been in the same boat as you. We had founded a startup in another space where I have seen the mixed bag of successes and failures, which in fact propelled me to do something differently. So as an investor, obviously, I'll share my views because every investor will have his or her own views. And given the fact that I have been an angel investor myself as well as a VC professional, I lead the health tech for a VC firm where we are a VC venture capital as well as a venture studio. So let me put my views. One thing you said it very right. A founder first looks at, an investor first looks at the founder's credentials, what he brings in. But that's, I think, as you would say, the tip of the iceberg. At an early stage, it matters because if you have got
We'll send you the details of this stuff.
a grip in that space, you do things better. But as you move up, what actually matters is the execution, the scale up. See, if I were to look at a startup for funding in a very personal note, I'm looking at it, let's say 2 to 3 years down the line where it's going to be. 3 to 5 years down the line where it's going to be. Because today is what's happening, the founder, the organization, or the founders are building, what capabilities they bring in. You can say a litmus test. But what comes of use is at the end of, let's say, 3 years, are you scaling up meaningfully? When I say meaningfully, it's not scaling up by burning cash and hitting into an enterprise which is not financially sustainable, but an enterprise which is sustainable, but which goes, in scaling up with the right metrics in terms of generating value for everyone, for the founders, the investors, employees, everyone. So that's one of the things we look. But at the same time, every investor has got his own thesis. Like if you are a founder working in a particular industry, your early adopters are the ones who understand your space. So each space is not if you are doing something which is more of aggregation, people used to understand that better. But if you're doing something which is a step ahead of that, like you're using some technology, you're solving a problem around what you're doing around building the trust in protein, and someone is working on sustainability, very niche areas, which requires early backers or early investors who understand that space, who typically can come in with capital and some helping hand. Maybe a bit of that, but that goes a long way, especially in the early stage. So those are the things which I personally look at. And even where I am associated with in the VC firm, we have our own thesis, which is like how strong the founder will be 2 years down the line. What is the team? Is the technology scalable? Is the product scalable? Will there be multiples of revenues as per our expectations? Those are the things which come, and that comes from apart from your background, apart from how you're executing. And more importantly, as you very rightly mentioned, early stage traction is something like your co-innovation. Because if you have a novel technology, revenue generation takes time, scale up takes time. So what kind of partnerships you have entered into, especially when you are in a B2B space. So those are some of the things which we keep in mind, but this is not a very, it's a gray area. There's no one size fits all. But how I think the stronger the founder is in his belief that what he is doing today will give will be will come into strong shape and will be meaningful for everyone in the years to come, is directly correlated with the conviction, the investors. And that's where the alignment happens. That's where funding happens. But having said that, it doesn't mean that if someone hasn't gotten funded immediately, you'll not be able to move up. It's not like that. That's a myth. You raise funds when you need. You raise funds the amount that you need. Use it well and make sure that when you're raising funds, it makes meaning for the investors. It's something that you are not taking to, work the way that you work, but in something that is in principle aligned with the investors that are putting money in you first and your organization, I think, as the second thought of their mind. So that's all I have to suggest. But I think what you're doing is extremely good work, very niche. I wish you good luck in that. And I hope the audience and the folks that are going to take a listen to this podcast will definitely make sense out of it.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for giving the clarity on that question, because that would really help a lot of these early stage funders, because especially pointers on how much to raise and how judiciously to use that fund is extremely important for a person to uh, kind of see and then utilize that and then scale up. So those are wonderful points, especially on how you invest and how different people view companies and what are the different factors that you consider before actually coming to a conclusion on whether you want to invest in the firm or not. Those are just wonderful points, and I think that would really help the audience to also structure their growth similarly in such a way that they run the company very profitably and sustainably, and they just don't look to podcast. Those are really good pointers. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.